Welcome to the Sun today for the 27th of February 2022. Today's video is about how the sun can go through quiet periods even as it's rising towards solar maximum. Some people seem to think that this is not possible, but it's quite normal. But first, let's go over the 24-hour summary that I posted on Twitter this morning. I haven't done very many of these recently on YouTube because the sun has been relatively quiet. You can see this from the first panel on the slide, which shows the sunspot number declining over the last couple of weeks. It's now at a level of 29. In the second panel, you can see that geospace has also been relatively quiet until a few hours ago, where it was disturbed for a period of something like 6 hours. This is probably due to the presence of that coronal hole that I posted on YouTube a couple of days ago. The solar wind has increased to about 460 kilometers per second. In the third panel, we can actually see the sunspots. We still have the two big sunspot regions, which are numbered 2954 and 2955. But the interesting thing is that a whole bunch of small regions popped up all of a sudden all over the sun. These are tiny sunspots that are not likely to be with us for very long. But I just thought it was very interesting that we had 5 different examples of these coming up all at the same time. In the inset below, we have the X-ray flux from the GOES spacecraft. It shows we had a small C flare earlier this morning, which makes it that we still have one consecutive day with a flare. We had no flares yesterday. It's been 78 days since our last spotless day, and we're getting pretty close to the record, which I think, if I remember correctly, is 85. The question we're going to take a look at today is whether this number of sunspots fluctuating is normal or is it unusual. It actually turns out to be quite normal. And you can see that some of that in the plot that we have on the right hand side here. This is the variation of sunspot number as presented by the Solar Influences Data Center. And you can see there are times here where it varies by as much as a factor of 2, there for example. And that's in just a couple of days. Much larger fluctuations are possible as well, as I'll show in a minute. During this month, we've had a peak of 102 as the sunspot number and a low point of 22. That's a factor of 5 variation, or nearly so. Long-term trend is down. You can see this black arrow fitted through the data points. But does this tell us anything about what's going to happen in the next month or the next year or the rest of the solar cycle? No, it doesn't. This sort of change is quite normal, and we will get back to a more active period in a week or a month or 2 months or something of that sort. So it's nothing to panic about, as some people seem to be doing. But even with this sharp decline over the last few weeks, February is the second most active month in solar cycle 25 so far. You can get a much better idea of whether this is normal or not by looking at the daily variability shown here in yellow, and the long-term average, which is the smooth sunspot number here shown in red. I've drawn an envelope over the daily fluctuations. You can see the extreme variations here, sometimes by as many sunspot number as 200. So this sort of fluctuation is not unusual. And it's the long-term average that determines the nature of the solar cycle, where the maximum is and where the minimum is. So what conclusions can we draw from all of this? The sunspot number is highly variable at any time during the solar cycle. A short-term fluctuation is no guide to the long-term evolution of the cycle. Anyone drawing conclusions about the solar cycle based on sunspot number over a short period of time is deluding themselves and others. That's you, GSM News. The moral here is, if you don't like the space weather, just wait a while, because it's going to change. So thank you for listening, and pass on this video to anybody you think who might enjoy it. And so until next time, stay safe and goodbye.